This video will go over the additional examples from the Algebra Day 2 notes on start and change. So in the first problem, we're given the story or a situation. So it says Maria had $2 and got 3 more every day. So $3 more every day. So first we want to identify the start and the change. So the start is what she began with, which was $2. And then the change is 3 per day. So if it's 3 per day or for one day, you don't need the 1 underneath the 3. You could just write 3. If it was any other amount than 1, it would be a fraction. If it was 3 every 2 days or 3 every 4 days, that would be a fraction, okay, with a different number than 1 in the denominator. But since this is just 3 every day, we can just say the change is 3. Okay, the next, I think, easiest step to go to is the table. So if she started with $2, so that means before she made any money, she had $2. That's what the start means, okay, where x equals 0. And then if the days is the x and the amount of money is the y, so after the first day, she would have 3 more dollars, which would give her 5. The second day, she'd have 3 more, which would give her 8. And the third day, she'd have 3 more, which would give her 11. Then those become the points that you graph. So over on my graph, I would go to 0 on the x-axis and then 2 on the y-axis. Okay, that start is your y-intercept. Okay, it's also right on that y-axis on the graph. Then I would graph the next point, 1, 5, 2, 8. This is kind of a hard graph to read, sorry guys. And then 3, 11 does go off the graph, so you don't need to graph that if it doesn't fit. Okay, remember on a graph, the start is on the y-axis. And then the change is how far up you go and how far over. So in this case, I go up 3 and over 1. Just like on my change fraction, I go up 3 and over 1. So instead of plotting the points, once I know my start, I can also go up 3 over 1, and that would be my next point. And then I can do that again, up 3 over 1, and that would be my next point. Finally, for the equation, if she gets 3 per day, that would look like that, right? 3 times the number of days, but she doesn't just start at 0, she starts at 2, so plus the 2 that she had to begin with. Y equals 3x plus 2. So in the equation, it would look like this, something times x. So the start times x plus, I'm sorry, I did that wrong, the change times x plus the start. Okay, so that's the general format for the equations as well. All right, next one, we are given the table this time. So days is the x, dogs is the y. We're going to look for the start and change first. Remember that the start is where x equals 0. So x equals 0 right here. That means my start is 5. To figure out the change, I have to do the change in y divided by the change in x. Okay, so y over x. So for dogs, on the y side, I get 2 every day. Okay, so 2 over 1, which would simplify to just 2. Okay, so now I'm going to graph that. So if my start is 5, I can start on 0, 5, and then go up 2 every day. So up 2 over 1. I run out of room right there, so I'm not going to go past that. But you could also go backwards. If you go backwards, that would be going down to back 1, which is where this first point comes from. Negative 1, 3 is right here. Back 1, up 3. Okay, you always want to connect your lines. It should be a straight line. Okay, let's do the equation next and then come back to the story. So remember the format for your equation. The change comes in front of the x. So if she gets 2 dogs every day, that would be 2x. But she didn't just start with 0 dogs, she started with 5, so plus the 5. Now, because the table tells us that it's days and dogs, we should probably write a story about days and dogs. You could use your name or somebody else's name, or you could just say, I had 5 dogs. That's the start. I adopted 2 more every day. Okay, if our days didn't count by ones, let's say they counted by 3s, I would have to include that in my story. So I would say I adopted 2 more every 3 days. So that does have an impact on your story as well. All right, on to the back. So now we are given the equation. So remember the format for your equation, the change goes in front of the x plus the start. So that makes it super easy to figure out our start and change. So the change is just the number in front of the x, which in this case is -2. And then the start is the other number, so that would be 8. I wrote that backwards again. Sorry, guys. The change is -2. The start is +8. All right, so now let's do the table. So if I start at 8, remember that's where x equals 0. So I would say 0, 8. And then it says the change is 2. It would help if you put that as a fraction, so 2 over 1. But it's going down 2, so -2. So if I start at 8, I have to go down 2 every time, not just down, or not just up 2. So 8, then 6, then 4, then 2. I'm just counting down. And then because the bottom number is 1, that means the x side counts up by 1. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, then I can graph that. So I'm going to start at 8 on the y-axis. And I'm going to go down 2 for every 1 that I go over. So down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. It's really hard to see, guys, sorry. Down 2 over 1 more. Okay, so that would be our straight line, straight as you can. And then the story, there's no context here. It doesn't say what x and y should be, so you can make it be whatever you want as long as it makes sense. So I'm going to do something pretty basic. I had $8. I spent $2 every day. Okay, the spending is because it's negative. Okay, if it was positive, I could say I earned $2 every day. All right, finally, the last one, we just have the graph. Okay, so it's probably easiest to start with the table if I know the points that are on this graph. So I'm just going to read the point. So this first point is -2, -5. So -2, -5. That's my first point. Okay, my next point is on the y-axis. So that would be 0, -4. Okay, now I'm over here at 2, and this would be -3. And now this last point is 4, -2. Okay, so I can already very clearly see a pattern there. My start is where x equals 0. So that would be right here. So that means my start is -4. And then my change is going to be a fraction. Remember, y over x. So I'm going to go up 1 for every 2 that I go over. The order that you put that in matters a lot. I'm going to go up 1 for every 2. So that's a half. Okay? It's not 2 over 1 like the last one was. Up 1 over 2 on the graph. And you can see that on the graph as well, if that's easier than looking at the table. So up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. Okay? All right, then the equation. The change goes in front of the x. So up 1 over 2 for every x, or up 1 every 2 x's, either way. And then I'm going to say -4. You could technically say 1/2 x plus -4, but saying minus is more simplified. And then for the story, again, there's no context here, so you can kind of make up whatever values or whatever variables you want here. So because I start with something negative, temperature is a pretty common thing to do for that. So, or you could do money or whatever. But if it's negative, temperature is an easy one. So we could say it was 4 degrees, negative 4 degrees. The temperature rose 1 degree every 2, let's say, hours. Could be minutes or days or weeks, it doesn't matter, but some amount of time. Okay.